we're ready on this side.
You are recording.
Awesome. What's going on, y'all? This is your girl, Brie Undeniably, checking in for another episode of my new speaker series, Deep Conversations with Dope Individuals, where we're discussing development, decision making, and dedicating yourself to purpose. Today, I am here with a super dope individual, someone I am very excited to introduce, someone who has really been a great support of the podcast, and having him on the podcast today is truly something special. I really am excited to introduce Sam Ellis. So, after 18 years in the workforce, 15 years in personal development, and 12 years studying organizational behavior, Sam has developed a process to stabilize a business's operations, optimize their systems, and expand sales with accurate intent and definiteness of purpose. Sam joined a leadership development program at the age of 18 and spent the next 15 years dedicated to studying, observing, and testing leadership in the marketplace. Having a passion and determination to affect small businesses through operations, Sam received his Scrum Master certification in November 2017 to understand and train others with an agile methodology. The majority of Sam's education has been in the field. Science requires real life scenarios with real life results, introducing variables and collecting data. Sam has enjoyed learning the last 15 years he's been in the workforce and is determined to educate small business owners with an easier, softer way of growing and expanding their business. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, Bree. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. It's great to have you on. I'm really excited that you're here. Um, and the way I really like to kick off all my podcasts is in the counseling space. We like to meet our clients where they're at. I like to do the same with my guests for our listeners. So help us meet you where you're at and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Oh, man, it's going to be broad. You might have to interrupt me. I could probably go for 20 or 30 minutes to just catch, everybody up.
That's the
First
best
off,
part. I like to see where that broad question leads you, and then we'll go from there. So let's kick into it.
sure. Well, first off, I want to say how grateful I am for the conversation, Bree. Thanks for allowing me into this space. One of the reasons that excites me about this conversation is my belief about conversation and what it can do for our own personal and professional growth. I think that conversations are very underutilized space to be able to have breakdowns and breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm.
So someone like you, I know with the 3Ds, development, decision making, and dedication to your purpose, I know that you have an intent behind the conversation and an intent behind the space. So I'm excited about that because I know that whoever's going to consume the content is going to be able to get something out of it. And that's what I like. I've been having conversations for about 18 years with small business owners, people who are on their journey, things like that. And it took me about 10 to 12 years to not just have random conversations, but to have intent behind it. So thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I really appreciate it.
I love that you brought in intent already, because being intentional about who you are, the conversations you're having, the purpose you're bringing, all of that. I mean, I find that a lot of my life is wrapped up in intentionality, and from what we have spoke on, I can see so much of what you do and who you are is backed by intention as well. So I think that is a great way to kick this off. And I really look forward to this conversation.
Yeah, let's go. So I'll catch you up. So a
All
little
right.
bit, expounding on my bio. I not even out of my own, I want to say that specifically out of my own intent did I start personal development. We had a conversation before this on the phone, just kind of prepping for this last week or a couple weeks ago. Is um, I did not know that type of information existed. So at 18, when I did start my personal development and my first mentor gave me my first book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, it was something that changed the direction of my life entirely. I did not know information like that existed, let alone existed in that form, let alone was so cheap to access, right? When I was growing up, I'll just give context briefly. I grew up in I would say, a traditional unstable home, meaning
Okay.
my father was in and I'm trying to make light of it, but my father was in and out of prison. My mom was in and off the streets. We were in and out of homes, moved with my grandma early on. So, in this dynamic, what I learned was just I watched other people live in their life, people who had a
Mhm.
stable life, people who had stable parents, things like that. And I always thought that they were special or had God's favor. Really, I always thought like, man, they must have done something long ago to be able to, not go through the things that I went through. I guess, right? Just comparing and
Mhm.
contrasting, which alone is can be dangerous. But I just thought that it was inaccessible to have a life like that, born where I was born. So I just kind of accepted when I was like 14 or 15 that this was going to be my life and I was going to repeat the cycles and I was just going to make the best out of it. So when I met my first mentor and he gave me this book, first off, he gave me a tape and it was like an audio, some motivation audio. And I went home at 11:30 p.m. and I'd listened to like 3 a.m. and was just blown away by some of the things the speaker was saying. And I'm like, wait, I can change my mindset. I can shift the direction of my life. Like
Mhm.
it was foreign to me, And it drove me for the next 10 to 15 years where I just consumed as much as I could. I mean, I wanted to forget everything that I had learned in my child rearing. Um, were there positives in it? For sure. There was compassion that I learned and empathy and a community, with a family and being tight knit and things like that. But I had to dig for those positives, if that makes sense. So as I started to consume all this information, I realized in my own life, I was just getting started. I just had my first daughter, or actually, she was 2 months away from being born when I got my first book. So it excited me even more because I'm like, I don't have to put her through the stuff that I was, went through type stuff.
Mhm.
I could actually give her a different type of space to grow up in. So I enrolled in a leadership development program, which meant every month I was driving 4 to 5 hours to the DFW to go to a seminar to learn from somebody who knew more than me. And then every quarter I was going to like Atlanta or Florida or Cali to attend like a larger conference where I could just network and interact with more people that were on the journey, right?
Mhm.
And I started to consume to in hindsight, hide all the insecurities of Sam and hide all the
Mhm.
stuff that I didn't want anybody to know about. So it became a journey of approval and permission more than anything else. Like I wanted somebody else's approval to be able to go down the path that I was going down, or the ideas that I had. I wanted to be able to find permission in a book or in my mentor, things like that.
Mhm.
And I really didn't know what personal development was. I just knew that I could consume this information and integrate it into my life, and out would come better results, right? So I changed the way the people that I hung out with. I changed the way that I spoke. I started going to church. My parents never went to church, things like that. I became a member. I started volunteering, just everything opposite of what I grew up in.
Mhm.
And then in this process is how I got to my methodology, or how I got to a point where I am now. Like over time, it took me about 15 years to learn that I was really unlearning the last 15 years rather than learning.
Whoa.
Um, and yeah, for
That's a that's
sure.
a that's a big I feel like just that there's so much that you're saying that I want to touch on, but just that
Sure.
alone, that you in that it took you the same amount of time to unlearn as it did to learn. And that not only is that dedication and commitment, but that is a decision to really change your circumstances, change your mindset, change everything that you saw was actually now possible to change.
Oh, for sure. And unlearning is painful. It
Mm-hmm.
sucks.
It
You
sure
have to,
does.
I had
It
to
sure
let
does.
go. Yeah, I had to let go of everything that I believed in a sense, right?
Sheesh. Yeah,
I
that's
had
and
to
that's
I had to
crazy.
jump off the cliff into the abyss and hope that there was a net down there.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, I just learned a lot about myself. I did not choose my path. I'm going to say that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I made the choices when they were presented to me, but I didn't make the choice to go down this journey. I mean, it was all divine timing, synchronistic moments, something outside of myself that knew what Sam needed to go down to be able to become Sam, if that makes sense, you know?
Absolutely.
For a long time, I thought I was in control. I wanted to be in control, like, oh, I'm in control of my, things like that. But I look back now after 18 years and I realize like it was a lot of chance opportunities that I just took advantage of.
Hmm.
So the unlearning part was just me having to relearn life at the same time. I mean, without having stable parents there, I didn't know a lot of basics either. I had to grow up in public. I had to grow up with my daughters. One of the most painful things for me in my personal journey is the growing up in public, and a lot of us are doing it. We're failing in front of others more than a lot of other people, which has to come with thick skin because you can't really care what people are thinking if you're failing in public. Because God damn, when you fail, it's easy to win in public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Sure
man,
is.
pat me on the back, give me my rewards, let's go, right? But to fail in public, oh shit, man! Like
Not
it's like a
not easy.
yeah. I mean, you fall and then you look up and you're like, is anybody looking? You're like, oh, right, and you get started again, right? So
That discomfort. That
yeah,
discomfort of with having eyes on you or thinking eyes are on you, which
exactly. That's
we
true.
could go
Yeah,
deep into that too, but for
we
sure.
can. And so in this time frame, I was pursuing personal professional development so that I could create an opportunity where I would have more time. I somehow got introduced to the concept of, oh, I'm trading my time for dollars
Hmm.
to be able to live my life. And I'm like, man, I really want to trade less time for more money. I want to show up for a little bit and get paid the most of it. And
Mm-hmm.
and I felt like I was giving the most and receiving the least with a lot of the opportunities, which is what I liked your last conversation with your friend. Oh, I just went blank.
That's okay. Recently from this recording,
Skybird.
Sky, yes.
Yes. You guys had that piece about the energy exchange.
Yes.
And it took me a long time to grasp that. I mean, it took me a long time to get introduced to that concept, let alone, the last 3 to 5 years is really when I've been integrating it. Like, oh, okay, like there needs to be an equal amount of reciprocity there so I could
Right.
get the most out of it, right?
Right.
Um, so in this process, I was just trying to become a better person so that I could create better opportunities or take advantage of opportunities so I wouldn't have to trade so much time for money.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of all this, somehow, some way, I remembered some things. I took note on some things, and it wasn't until, let's see, we're in 2021. It had to be 2018. Yeah, 2018. 2017, I met Danielle Leslie. I don't know if you ever heard of her.
Mm-hmm.
I met her in San Francisco. Her sister and I were at a similar conference, and then Danielle showed up, and I got introduced to her. So I started following her. And about a year later, and then she launched her, course from scratch, things like that. And I was like, man, this looks promising. But it took me another year before I could have the funds to be able to buy the program. And when I did, it changed everything for me. So she equipped me to be able to put myself in position where I am right now, which is have my own methodology, be able to write a couple of books on, my own methodology, my experience, my skills, which she teaches on. I'm not going to give away her program or anything right here, because I think if anybody's trying to figure out who they are and how they want to present themselves to the world in exchange for a life,
Mm-hmm.
she's done an amazing job, and her course is one of the best that I've ever taken to be able to get you to find clarity on that for yourself. So after all those years of personal professional development, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. All I was doing was adding value to the people that I was working for, which was
Wow.
fine. It was a good
Which is
exchange.
which is great to be doing
Yeah.
as it is, but you want you to continue to advance yourself, not just advance others with all of the knowledge that you've acquired.
Yeah, and my vision grew over time. It wasn't like that all the time. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
fine going and working for people. I was getting recruited at the age of 19 and in a sense doubling my income every time.
Oh.
Because of personal development, I learned negotiation tactics. I learned that I had leverage as an employee if I had certain skills and certain experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take that to the table and they would, offer me something and I'd counter with something and we'd, negotiate and boom, I'd get the job. One of the jobs they immediately put me into a manager position just because of the way that I was negotiating. It was just funny.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
but in this, so I had like many opportunities. I've been in 10 different industries over the last 18 years. So I've been in heating and air conditioning. I've been in network marketing. I've been in youth outreach. I've been in, man, what else? I've been in a
All
whole bunch
across
of
the
others.
board. Yeah, you have
Yeah.
had your hand in many different places.
Yeah. So the culmination of that finally ended up, I was working for a heating and air conditioning company. I sold like $1 million my first year.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then someone again recruited me to go project manage for them. That didn't turn out too well after 3 weeks. And I was like, okay, well, I've been in this personal professional development and studying small business, for 10 years. Like, let me just try it. Let me
Mm-hmm.
just see if I can do it. Right. Like if this guy could do it who just screwed me over, quote unquote, and that's not really what happened, but where I didn't really, set boundaries and we didn't have proper communication. That's really what it was. It wasn't that somebody screwed me over. So I'm like, okay, if he can do it doing bad business, that's the point of that. And what could I do if I was doing good business,
Mm.
right?
That's
So
major. That
I
is
went into
major. Yeah.
business and I started doing building fences. I think, yeah, picket fences, and I did very well. I don't know how much I was making, but I was making too much. I'll tell you that right now.
It's a
I,
good problem to have.
Yeah, I wasn't doing a lot of positive things. I'll say that. I was still struggling with the first 18 years of my programming, which
Mm.
I want to say in my 20s, I would contact my mentor frustrated about my development. I'm like, dang it, dude, I'm still getting mad, or I'm still have this bad habit, or I'm still falling back to this. And he was patient with me, man. He was such a good man. And he'd take a deep breath and he'd be like, Sam, you had 18 years of bad programming.
Right.
He's like,
Conditioned
it's not.
behavior, bad that's I love how you're putting it, bad programming, because that, for thinking like analytically speaking, that we are programmed or conditioned to,
We are.
you know, to live a certain way based on the influences that are around us. So we don't choose those things, especially not as a child. So bad programming, that is a great way to put that.
Yeah, and he had grace and mercy for me and gave me space for growth, which is
Mm-hmm.
again what I feel a conversation is. It allows me to have space for you where you are, right? Or you to have space for
Mm-hmm.
me where I am, and then help me grow past that. So, and he did. He was like, Sam, it's going to be a while before you get to zero. So for the last 18 years, I just knew I was climbing out of a hole.
Wow.
So it wasn't really trying to accomplish grand things or build this great vision. It was like, can I just get to zero?
Man, you're speaking some major truths right now. I mean, I'm thinking of everyone who's listening already, and just in the past 20 minutes of this conversation, you're talking about the development of getting out of the negatives.
Exactly.
And that is something that I feel like we don't even so many of us don't even consider, and that's why I know you know this because this is what you work on as well, but being in the field of personal and professional development, they're so intertwined because you have to integrate the personal development. You can't just skip over it. You can maybe do professional development, but I'm telling you that personal piece will creep back in eventually. If you have not, figured out
Yeah.
what you need to figure out and kind of, work through those conditioned behaviors or got through that bad programming, so to speak, there's no that will come back to haunt you. So that's why
For
the
sure.
personal and professional development are so integrated into each other because exactly what you're saying. I mean, you were getting to zero, and that is a huge accomplishment as it is. You were unlearning.
Exactly. the breaking the, and then the, you know, the deeper side of that is just breaking the generational curses, which is
Mm-hmm.
an even bigger hole to climb out of, right? It's not just my own personal hole, but it's the generations past,
Right.
my dad's dad, my mom's mom. So it's like, it's a huge mountain to climb when I'm the one breaking the curses. If I've chosen to break the generational curses, it's going to be more than my own personal development in a sense, right? It's going
Mm-hmm.
to be my ancestors that I'm going to carry on my back and saying, let's get out of here, right? Like,
Right.
let's get done with this. So I love that you use the word integration, because integration is what builds the habit, right?
Mm-hmm.
And without integration, without steps of integration as well, I think a lot of people, what I've experienced over the last 5 years is a lot of us um, aren't aware of the process of integration. Whether it's the times we live in, whether it's because of technology or things like that, there is some type of instant um, evolution that we want to experience in our personal professional development, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want it to be tomorrow. Like, god dang it, I started already today. Like, why can't I have the results next week, you know?
Right.
but it
Right.
but it I learned, and it took me a long time to learn that. And then I was again grateful for my first mentor to be like, Sam, it's going to take a while, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So about after 10 years of complaining to him and whining,
Shout out to
I
him also.
yeah,
Shout out to this
right.
first mentor for sure.
Yeah.
He sounds like
I,
he was an incredible person to have in your life at this period of time.
oh man, he taught me that sometimes we need someone to believe in ourselves more until we need somebody to believe in us more than we believe in ourselves
Mm-hmm.
until we believe in ourselves, you know.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Sometimes to borrow that confidence from somebody is just required, you know.
I love that. I think that's actually really important for everyone listening. Just really let that sink in, because we don't all come equipped with that confidence, right? Or that belief in ourselves, and that's something for sure. If you can find others, especially mentorship. Mentorship is something that's like, I could spend episodes on the importance of mentorship. But if it's not a mentor, a loved one, a friend, someone to borrow, like you said, borrow that confidence, because that is important. Have other people tell you that you are, something worthwhile, so that you can
Right.
start thinking about it yourself.
And I think we forget that other people have a different perspective of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're so into our shit, and so into, we're in the ditches, we're in the trenches with ourselves, that we can't even see our growth sometimes.
Right.
That's why I was frustrated. And he's like, Sam, are you serious? You've been doing this, you got promoted, you've negotiated twice your salary, you're a better father, he's like, what do you mean, right? But it was my own frustration with my own growth. Like, I wanted to be further, right? Like, it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't satisfied, which, this, you're your own worst critic, right?
Of
So,
course.
but to have people in your corner is what I tell my daughters. Like, listen, you're gonna have so many people not agree with what you're trying to do or not resonate, but listen to that one person. And I have to tell her, like, I'm the one person in your corner. I'm the one person cheering you on. Like, yes, I'm your dad, and yes, it's corny, but listen to me. Hey, listen. I want to
Mm-hmm.
be the loudest one in her ear.
I love that.
But on those same lines, what you're talking about, the personal capacity that can affect everything else, which is what I've learned, and what I've had a little bit in my bio, and also like in my LinkedIn, is like our own personal capacity is going to affect the way we show up in business.
Right.
So Tony Robbins has a great quote, and he says, the chokehold on the growth of your business is the psychology of the leader, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
So good.
a lot of times when I come into an organization, the leader, has these visions or ideas about expanding their business, and but they themselves don't have the capacity to be able to expand. So that's why I resonated with you. That's why I know this was a synchronistic moment, because there's a lot of stuff happening. The word dope, first off, I use dope all the time. Me and my friend have this thing we call dope decks that we want to give out to people on personal development, that we have on,
Nice.
yeah, that we can give somebody and say, hey, and that comes from a previous life that I've had, understanding about always have the dope on you, always be ready to serve, go down that, learn a lot from that space. But and then the potential, purpose, and psychology are my 3 Ps. So I told my daughter the other day that our potential is going to show up when it's going to show up in our lives. Like it's destined to show. I believe like our potential is timed in our life to show up at certain moments. The level at which we experience that potential depends on our preparation, though.
Oh, let's talk on it.
Yeah, right. Which is why I like success is when opportunity and preparedness meet. And my mentor told me that when I was like 19. So I've always just tried to be prepared versus I think a lot of people try to be in control of the success, and we're not. I just after 20 years of studying and observing, um, I know we want to think that we are, but I can almost out of all the stories that I've listened to and read about, there are a lot of chance opportunities that these people just took advantage of because they were prepared for, and that's what led to their success.
I love that. I'm just going to go over that one more time.
Yeah,
Success is when opportunity and preparedness meet.
yeah,
So that like let that simmer, because that's a great way, because this goes back to kind of what you were speaking on a few minutes ago about people trying to jump the gun, so to speak, and be like, why am I still here? Why aren't I there at my goal? And when the goal is successful, you don't just jump there. You actually need to fill in the pieces of the equation that make sense to get there.
for sure.
And for us, the active part that we can play in that equation is the preparedness. And then that opportunity has to present itself. There's ways to put ourselves in front of opportunity. Like you said, you were going to a bunch of conferences, kind of like putting yourself in the places where opportunity can thrive or flourish. But that's more left to chance and circumstance, whereas the preparedness we have full control over. So we don't just get the success, we get to prepare for the success, and then hopefully it happens upon us.
For sure. And then the other piece of that is the level at which we experience our potential is dependent upon that preparation as well. So I know, I'm sure you've lived a long enough life that I can assume. I know that I've experienced this. There have been opportunities I was not prepared for.
Oh my goodness.
And I still
Yeah.
think about those and oh man, they make me sick sometimes.
Yep.
I'm like,
Yep.
Sam, So I had to learn, that if I'm in control of my preparation, then when the opportunity presents itself, all I have to do is slide in and I'll be right. Like, let's go. Right. So it took me a long time to just integrate that. Right.
Yeah.
To just use the word integrate. But the capacity at which we experience that matters. So when I come to someone and they want to expand their business or something, I will focus on their business, which I have another methodology, system, software, and sales, which is what you talked about. So I think it's very simple for me. Simple is an acronym for me. It's simply intelligent motion, propelling life's evolution. So that's what system, software, and sales is.
Like
It's
that.
not a whole bunch of other things. I've been in sales for 18 years. I've broken a lot of records in those industries that I was in, things like that. I just put some pieces of the puzzle together. And I just learned that if a business can stabilize their systems, their SOPs, their standard operating procedures, their processes, things like that, and they can optimize their software, which to me means culture. How you show up in business matters. It doesn't just because you have a good product or service doesn't mean that people are going to buy it. The way that you show up and the way you present it actually matters. And then after the fact matters too. After they buy it, what else are you doing to maintain the relationship? And then in sales, which is what a lot of business owners hire me for, is like, I want to expand my sales. I want to expand my sales. The greatest tool or the greatest concept that I learned in sales was if I can build community around my product or sales, the sales are going to happen naturally.
Yeah. That's a
So
great
I
way to
can
look at
come
it.
in and teach somebody to have exponential growth. And I've had people go from 100,000 a month to 200,000 a month within 3 weeks. I've had people go from 1,000 a month to 20,000 a month within 90 days. I've had people go from
Wow.
80,000 to 300,000 a month within a month, things like that. And it sounds amazing, right? Like, man, we're making all this money. Going back to the personal capacity part, though, it could be like the lottery, though. So, and I call it the lottery effect. And before I come and help somebody or be a tool for somebody, I tell them, hey, my process can have a lottery effect, meaning we're about to stir up a lot of shit and a lot of reward and a lot of potential. But if you don't have the personal, emotional, mental and emotional, spiritual capacity to handle that abundance, you're going to break.
Ooh.
Just
Yes.
like the lottery, right? What happens with
Yeah.
people in the lottery when they're not ready to experience that abundance? They end up worse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that
Wow.
happens in business. And I've seen it for myself. There's been one occasion, actually, I'm going to say three occasions now. There's been three occasions where the person wasn't prepared for their
Hmm.
potential and it broke them and they had to shut their doors
Whoa.
because it was too much for them. The systems weren't in place. They couldn't optimize their culture, optimize their software. And so when their sales expanded, it became over. They themselves couldn't handle it.
So,
And
and you're saying that this goes back to their capacity, that
exactly.
their capacity, and so their capacity comes back even further to their preparedness. Is that
Exactly.
that's that sort of pipeline there? Preparedness leads to the capacity, leads to,
Yep.
being able to really take in that abundance.
For sure. And I know, I
Hmm.
think you discussed this a little bit with, I think, is his name Joshua?
Josh, yeah, Joshua, yeah.
Yeah. About relationships. So it's like sort of
Yes.
like if you're not ready for or don't understand what a healthy relationship is,
Mm-hmm.
you're probably going to sabotage it.
Yes. Okay.
And it's just like in business, right? When you start to experience this abundance and things like that, and you're not prepared for it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to start to sabotage it. So I come in and I help people focus on their system, software, and sales, but in really, I'm observing them and focusing on them, and then we start to integrate their process so that their business isn't affected. Because I think sometimes, and maybe you'll resonate with this or not, I believe that ideas are not ours, the individual.
Hmm.
I believe it is the collective's idea that wants to use you as the tool to manifest itself, which
Huh.
I should be grateful because the world wants to use me to bring this to life.
That is so. Wait, we have to pause. Oh,
Yeah,
sorry. It looks like you have something
that's
to
okay.
say, but I'm just letting
Go ahead.
that. I'm taking that
Interrupt,
in
whatever.
because I think that that is a great way to sort of think about what our relationship to an idea is. I think that you just hit the nail on the head in a way that I have really never heard it described. It's the ideas. The idea is basically how the world has chosen us to be the vessel of the idea, but the
Exactly.
idea, we're not originating the idea from our mind, because in essence everything from our mind is coming from the world. So it's the world which chooses us as the vessel for the idea, for us to then let it manifest into what it does.
For sure. And you know this. How many people do you know, or even yourself, you're like, I had that idea.
Yeah.
I was thinking the
Wait a
same
second.
thing, right?
We could talk about a few
Well,
things. Yeah, Shark Tank's
yeah,
really, really coming in hot with all of our ideas, which they're not our ideas.
no, exactly. And the reason I pinpoint that is because a lot of times the end of the business owner or the visionary who wants to carry out the idea will want to integrate their own personality into the business.
Hmm. Very
And a
true.
lot of times that's friction. And the people that I've consulted over the last 5 years, when they've tried to insert their personality, like I understand personal branding, I understand that. And I think there's a shift. I mean, there's a boundary, there's a line with the idea of the product or service that you're trying to create. So when we try to integrate or insert our own personality, sometimes, again, if we don't have the capacity to have that relationship be healthy, what we're doing is we're also inserting our limiting beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
our subconscious programming, or
Mm-hmm.
so we constrain our business to our own personal capacity. And at the same time, though, we're wanting to expand it, but we're holding on to it, and we're wanting to expand, and we're holding on, and, and it becomes this tug of war. And I've had, just as a coach and consultant, I've had to pinpoint that because I've had to highlight it to be able to expand the business, if that makes sense.
Of
So
course.
I had to remove the individual as an individual, and then the business is its own entity. It's not the individual, if that makes sense.
Is that tough for the individuals that you're removing this?
Oh my God, it's the toughest.
I bet. I
It's
bet because I mean that's also when you think about it, especially if like this business was their baby or is their baby or however, however it is, they're leading this business, so to speak. So they do have that personal connection to it. And we've already talked about the integration of personal development and professional development and how those things are intertwined. However, what you're talking about is really kind of pulling out this ugly looking thing called ego or something of the sort that can sort of get intertwined or even oh man, I'm going really back way back to my psychology days. There's the id, the ego, and the super ego, but there's also there's the piece that it's not necessarily the ego that they're intentionally sort of putting in there, but you're stripping them of something that they thought was really positive for the business, and it might actually be what's breaking the business down.
Exactly. No, you hit it. So, and I'll give now. It sounds like I just said that, and it sounds like okay, Sam, like theory. I'll give you real life examples.
Let's hear it.
So when I worked for the youth outreach program, one of my passions, like yours, is youth. I want to equip youth. When I've talked to over 10,000 students over the last 5 years.
That's
I've
incredible.
been on stages teaching, 200-300 students, things like that. And for this particular program, when I showed up, they had like 35 students showing up to their program a week, which is an average. If you go across the country, it's 35 to 50 for a youth group. Well, I applied my personal development. I applied my sales experience and my observation in business and leadership. And 6 months later, we had 200 students showing up. We had over 1,500 go through the program. It was the most they ever had in their 15 years of existence. We had over 2,000 students come through the program. It was insane growth. We couldn't even keep up with it.
That's
we had over
incredible.
500,
Sorry, that is
500
incredible. Yeah.
Thank you. People come through 500 students come through the program every week. So here's what was happening though. Before I showed up and before this happened, it was a specific demographic that was showing up. It was Hispanics. We were on the certain part of town. The owners were Hispanic. The creators of the nonprofit were Hispanic. All the volunteers were Hispanic, Spanish, Mexican descent, however you want to look at that. When I came in, then for whatever reason, I don't know why, I attracted a lot of, I would say dark skin. I don't know what the PC term is, but I talk a lot of my black friends. Like, man, we just a lot of them, right? Well, and the culture is different than it is with anybody else. Like, and we had to learn this as clergy and as people on staff. So, meaning that they different cultures speak differently. They have different tonalities. They have different character. They have, like, these students they love to wrestle and hit each other, and they were always yelling and things like that. And for most people, it was too much for them. And I'm going to be totally transparent on this thing. I had staff member after staff member and volunteer after volunteer come to me as, in a sense, the leader of what was happening and tell me these exact words. We're tired of this, we're tired of that. And then they'll be like, and this is heartbreaking as I say, but I'm going to make light of it and I'll get a point to it and we'll get past it. They'll be like, because I had to approach them one-on-one as well, and have helped them grow through this. And it was, but it's all the black kids. And I'm like, and I heard this over and over, and I'm like, okay, first off, from a biblical standpoint, because it was Christian based, I'm like, if we look through this through a biblical lens, if they were lost and now they're found, shouldn't we be rejoicing versus complaining?
Yes.
Right. So, but here's my point about the personal capacity is that they had an idea of who their program wanted to reach. And when customer, their ideal customer, didn't come through the door. It was a different type of customer that came through the door. They wanted to push it away.
Yes, there's othering. It was
Exactly.
it was not if it was not the subconscious demographic that they might have had in their head, they those who came in that didn't look like them were othered. You know,
Exactly.
it's us and it's them. And when people feel like they have been othered, they will there's no sense of community there. There's no sense of
Exactly.
comfort there. So any type of behavior comes when someone is being, ostracized or made to
Yeah.
feel as if they are other.
So to connect it is the owner, he had his own personal beliefs about his product and who it should reach. But the idea is not his. It was the collective's. In that moment, the universe needed to use him and his product to reach this demographic and this person. And if he continued to insert his own personal beliefs, he was going to push away the product. I mean, the consumer that his product was attracting.
I
And so
see.
instead of adjusting and shifting,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I see a lot of people not doing,
Yep.
because they want their customer to come through that door. And the customer's over here on the window, hey, I want it, I want it. And they're like, no, no,
Right.
no, you got to come through the door. You got to come through the door. And it's like, dude, like they're right there. Just open the window, right?
That's such a great way to put this, though. That is so, it's so important. Like you can't just pigeonhole what you believe is the only type of person you're going to serve, because
Exactly.
you're limiting every aspect that is involved in the organization or the company or whatever it might be.
For sure, for sure. And another example is I was working, or I got hired for to run operations for a real estate wholesale company. They needed to go from 100,000 to 200,000, things like that. And as I was talking with the owner, I shared this concept with him about ideas and the way they come into form, and how we block them sometimes and things like that. And he had a desire of a certain type of Porsche that he wanted to buy when he reached a milestone. So he had a year, he had this and that. And when I shared that with him, he sat on it for like 2 minutes. He said he went back to his office. He changed his criteria by 1 year. And immediately the exact Porsche that he wanted showed up, and he bought it 2 weeks later.
Wow. Wow. Oh my
So,
gosh.
right. So imagine if he would have just not accepted that the idea and him are different, or that I could say yes to this and not really, it doesn't really have to come through that door. It could come through somewhere else.
Hmm.
And he opened up so many more possibilities.
Absolutely.
And that's what I think
Absolutely.
is the point of that, is just the idea. I've learned that even with my own self, if I have an idea, I want to be a good steward to it, to the community, more than to myself.
Hmm. I think
And
that, oh, please continue.
no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
I mean, clearly I love to bring purpose into this, but that sounds like purpose to me. It really
Exactly.
does. I feel like that integrates really well into the concept of purpose, where purpose is not for us. Purpose is taking what is for us and trying to unbottle that for the world.
For sure, for sure. And so I'll tell you, I'll as we get wrapping up in the next 10, 15 minutes or so, is and through all of this, again, I didn't know the direction that I was taking.
Hmm.
I just knew that I needed to unlearn and learn new things. And now the more that I learn, the more I realize I don't know. Like, it's just, oh my gosh, just so much, right?
It
So
really is. That's a great
after,
place to be, though.
oh sure, oh, it
To look
definitely is.
out and be like, wow, there's so much for me to learn, but you get excited about learning because you realize
Exactly.
what it yields.
No, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. And after working for this youth outreach program, and seeing the results and things like that, I had this one conversation with another mentor of mine, and it was the first time that he started taking notes. And this is when my purpose started to awaken, and it was
Hmm.
2016. And I was like, I got addicted to it. I'm like, dude, I wonder if I can make money off of doing, like, I'll make a living off of doing this, right? Meaning, I had to look at my own life and look back in my past and know that there was worth and value there, that it wasn't just in vain, which is what Danielle Leslie helped me do, is like, look in your past, and the flags are there, like the pieces are there, just put them together, which is how I came up with potential purpose in psychology. Because this particular mentor, I showed up to his house one day, and I don't know what made him say this, but it pissed me off in the right way. And it led me down a really good direction. And he said, Sam, don't be the guy that had potential.
Ooh. Oh my, that is like a knife,
dude,
to the heart. It's like,
oh my God.
whoa.
But it made me realize something. And this has been my quest ever since, which is why in my email I say self-actualized, is I learned that very few of us self-actualize. And part of it is we're unaware of certain aspects of the way that life really works. Right. I was unaware of certain, and I was definitely unaware of the integration process. And so I became a quest of, how can I activate people into their potential? I don't want to be the person that feeds them their potential, right? I don't even like giving people the answer. I just like to stir shit up, and hopefully they come up with the answer themselves. Because when they get to, and I learned this working with youth, if I give them the answer or try to give them the truth to live by, it's my truth they're trying to live by. They're never going to fully integrate it or fully execute on it because it's not theirs. So
well, I think something really cool that you're talking on, which you might not even be talking on, is the ones who the ones on the other side of your information sharing might not be prepared for that opportunity.
Exactly.
They might, and that's, that dual process there, that like, if you give the information and they're not ready to seize it up or actually see the wealth of knowledge that you have, what then what, so it's just interesting to see that. Tell us.
No, you hit something. No. So what I learned in youth outreach, especially within a faith-based organization, right? We're talking about planting seeds, and we know that the farmer threw it on rocky road, or he threw it on, where weeds were, and that one got choked out, and that one got picked up by the birds. And then it was only the one that got, that fell on fertile ground that had fruit, right? So I grew up next to cotton farms. My dad worked on cotton gins. I used to be out on cotton farms, pulling the weeds and things like that. My entire family, that's how we made a living. That's how we paid the bills. So I learned by watching and having cotton fields next to me that before you could plow the field and plant the seed, you have to clear the field and prep it. So where I grew up, where I live right now, it's West Texas. There's a lot of mesquite out there. It's unfertile ground. If you go throw something out there, it's going to get choked out. Anything by the mesquites and all the natural weeds. So my uncle has a bulldozing company, and he would go and bulldoze and clear out all the mesquite, turn up all the ground, like months of turning it up, clearing it out, turning it up, clearing it out, picking out all the trash out. And then the farmer can come and plow, and then he can come and plant the seed. Wow. And it's the same with our own personal capacity. So what I've learned now with people is I come in and I do a whole bunch of unlearning first. I clear out all that shit and get them ready to be able to plant the seed. Otherwise, it's going to get choked out. And that's where you throw your pearls before swine type stuff, right?
That just, the whole analogy, so incredible. And I actually learned something, right there. I didn't actually know about the prep work that it takes, to clear a field, and how, and it's so pertinent to human beings and to what we need to do in our lives, in our minds. And, introspection is incredibly important, but not only, self-reflection on what's taking place now in the moment, but really that unlearning, that digging deep into our past, that seeing, what are the pieces here that are maladaptive? What are the pieces here that are not serving me or are not serving others? What are the pieces here that are holding me in place or holding me back, And that's a scary thing to do. It's not something that people love to do, but the power in doing it is unparalleled.
And I think that's why I say an easier, softer way. I think there's an easier way to go after our potential. So once I realized that, I started this small quest of having people live up to their highest potential and be ready for it. So, and then I realized it wasn't enough. And you understand this, I'm sure with your degree, is we can know our potential. We can even know our purpose. But the very fucking thing that keeps us from doing it is our psychology.
So true.
The way we think about, I mean, we could have it right there. And we could be like, man, but I got to move this chair and I got to pick that. Like, we'll just think of everything for it not to show up, right?
But it's right there, knocking right there on the window. Like, this just brings our conversation full circle. Exactly. But we just can't see what's right in front of us, that reflexive process is really difficult. That looking in the mirror and believing in the things that are there is tough, to kind of see that potential, see that possibility. But man, is it possible?
It is. And so now I'm just at a place, going all the way back, bringing it full circle, where am I now? Now I'm at a place where I know that the more of us who self-actualize, the more authentic the world's going to be, the more integrity it's going to have, meaning like this table that's in front of me, it's got sound construction. It's going to take a lot of it for it to break, right? It's going to stand on its own legs. So that's what I feel like when we're self-actualized, we're going to be able to hold things more than we were before. We're going to be able to just have this integrity about ourselves to be able to go through life. And so I've been on this quest so again, I could be like, I only want to work with people who are after their purpose, but I know that most people want to make more money.
Yep.
So I show up in a form of, let me help you make more money in your business. Yeah. And it's like a Trojan horse. And I show up and I'm like, just get in. I'm here to help you, whatever. Right.
You sugarcoat it.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely helped them make more money. I learned this again in another space that I don't want to talk about. I learned that if you put money in people's pockets, they'll break their backs for you most time.
I know.
And especially if you put a lot of money in their pockets.
Yeah, for sure. And, we could go on a tangent on money being the motive for so many people. And in the world that we live in, it's really difficult for it to not be the motive, because it is the kingpin of most of our transactions. But as we understand, and as we've gone on our journeys, we can definitely attest to the fact that the things money can't buy, the things that just take the time and the effort, that's where the richness is. But I totally get it. The money piece and helping people make money, there is a lot of value in that, because money's also doing great things for people.
Exactly. So. Yeah, it's what it could do. It's a tool for sure.
For sure.
So I show up and I show people also that we've heard this, and somebody else. Everything that I'm telling you right now, I'm just going to say, even if you're listening to this, just know that these are not my own words. These are not my own ideas. I've read a lot of books. I've listened to a lot of people. I've just managed, in a sense, to put them in my own personality with the way that I want to deliver the message. I'm just the messenger. I tell people, I'm not the message. I'm the messenger. Don't shoot me, So I'd learned all of this through somebody else and through other people who have done this longer than me, who are way more versed than I am. So like the potential side of it, I think a lot of us, we've heard that it takes money to make money. And we have this limiting belief that if I don't have money, I can't create money. But it takes value to make money.
I love that.
And if I can bring value to a situation, I can make money. Do you know, for example, I've had people buy me cars. I've had people buy me over $20,000 worth of clothes. I've had people send me on free trips. I've had people pay for most of my courses. I've had people pay for over $10,000 in courses for me. I've had people fly me to Costa Rica, pay for everything, let me stay in their mansions. things like that, because I brought value to the equation more than I brought money. So the level at which we experience our potential, going back to the very beginning, depends on our preparation too, right? So if my preparation was still, it takes money to make money, and these opportunities showed up, I never would have experienced those.
Wow. Yeah,
But
that's
I
it.
prepared for it differently, meaning if I can have value in this situation, maybe I can create something else, right? Create a different scenario. And that's what's happened. So I come in and I try to show people that potential, which for a lot of us, we think potential is based on our own personal capacity, which it is. And though sometimes we want to base it on our past, or we want to base it on our own time, energy, and resources, which is limiting. If I have to think about my own time, my own energy, and my own resources, man, you're getting about this much. I don't have that
Right.
much time. I don't got that much money. I don't have that much energy. But if I can leverage somebody else's time, energy, and resources, then I can create bigger opportunities. And potential isn't about my past. I had to learn this reading The Law of Divine Compensation, reading The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, Outwitting the Devil, the Four Agreements, things like that. Is like, potential, the seven spiritual laws of success talks about pure potential. Pure potential is everything that I can think about exists right now. And it's not dependent upon what I've done or what I've accomplished this far. It's dependent upon what do I want to do right now.
Wow.
And we leverage that potential to be able to create the opportunities that I would have never, on my own time, energy, and resources, been able to create those opportunities that I just described to you.
I mean, truthfully, Sam, I could just listen to you talk about these things because you said these aren't your ideas, you're the messenger, but you are an incredible messenger. And the way that you speak on these topics, the way that you speak on your own personal story, and what you've gone through to where you are now, is truly, truly, I feel like it's a blessing to have you on the podcast and have listeners hear what you're speaking on, because you are, as I said, an incredible messenger, and I feel very lucky to have had you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I did want to stay on track. I wanted to definitely cover the development, decision making, and dedication. The
Yeah.
development, I think I've definitely covered that. Like, it's at times it's a choice, and at times it's not. How well are we prepared for it? The decision making is just understanding, who am I and where do I want to be and how do I want to show up in the world? And then making the choices to be able to do that consistently over time, right? They say it's an overnight success. Overnight success, it only took 20 years.
Yeah.
Which
Right.
is
Exactly.
the results that I've shared with you with the people that I've had, it wasn't overnight. It's because I've been preparing for 20 years, right?
Right.
And then the dedication is no matter now in the midst of all this, I know we're cutting short on time. You know how much shit I've had happen to me? I've been homeless 2 times. I've lost everything 3 to 4 times. I mean, it's been a journey, but the dedication to get out of this hole that I talked about in the beginning, to
Right.
break the curses, to start a new leaf for me and my, ancestors, things like that. That's what it's about. So it's a long game, right? It's like,
Of course.
and as much as I wanted to quit, and as much as I have, like, I've sat still for 2 years, to be transparent with you, like, it was just being restful. It's like, no, I got to do this. And so this synchronistic moment with you was like a jump start for me. And I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you allowing me on and having this conversation, being able to show up today with you.
It has been such a pleasure. We are on a super time crunch right now. We only have about a minute left, but I do want to do rapid fire, give you the floor one more time so you can let people know where they can find you. And I want to do some shout outs. So, rapid fire, you just named 3. Let's get into them one more time. Development. Currently, are you working more on personal development or professional development?
Professional.
Professional. Awesome. Okay. Decision making. Do you make more of your decisions based on choice or guiding voice?
Oh, guiding voice now.
Guiding voice. I was going to say, based on our conversation, it seems like guiding voice might be where you lean into more.
After my ayahuasca trip, yes.
Very cool. And dedication to purpose. Is that a singular moment in time or a daily practice?
Oh, no. Yeah, daily practice.
Daily practice. Awesome. Okay. Before we wrap it up here, I'm going to give out two quick shout outs. One to Gotham Podcast Studio for hooking it up with the audio and visuals in the space here. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see I'm in the studio and they are amazing. Another shout out to MC Kicks. You can find them at EMCEEKICKS. They're usually hooking me up with the merch. Today I actually have my own I Am Possible Champion hoodie on, tie-dye hoodie, so you can go to my website to find that, but also always shout out to MC because they're always hooking it up for me. Okay, Sam, we are at time. I'm going to give you 30 seconds if you can let people know where they can find you and leave us with your final words.
All right. If you've been listening this far and you got to this, got to the end of this, thank you so much. Let us know in the comments what you got from it. Bree, thanks again. You can find me on Instagram at thisdudesam, or on LinkedIn at Sam Ellis. That's ELLIS. So thanks again for tuning in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sam. Again, it has been such a pleasure. I hope one day in the future we can do a part 2 because I think that you and I, again, that synchronicity is always here with us. And I think that you bring so much value to the show, and I would love to have you on again.
Thanks again.
Of course, as I end all my shows, until next time, let this be the moment.